certain activities that you have to go through. So textbooks to carry, textbook, notebook, and your body. Now, so far the portion, the chapters that you have for biology, you may look into the index of your textbook. What are the chapters for biology? The chapters for biology would be like the first is life processes. It is an elaborate chapter, 4 major sections. The first chapter, life processes. Second chapter, control coordination. You may take those biology chapters. Control coordination. Third, heredity. How do organisms reproduce? Fourth, heredity. And fifth would be our environment. So these are the 5 chapters that we'll have to go. Now, the first chapter that would be started in most of the schools. Now here, unlike schools, since it's a assemblage of 3-4 different schools, some few more children will join in a short time. So most of the schools generally would start with life processes as the first chapter, elaborate chapter. So most of the schools would start with life processes. So here I intend to start with life process, provided in your schools they have not started with anything else. And that also from time to time we'll have to inform. Which are the schools here? DAV and? You're from Don Bosco. Ryan Stanford. You both are there. What about this side? So what is happening in Don Bosco? Did they start with this chapter? Not yet. Okay. I think Don Bosco always starts with the first chapter only. Life process. So 1 or 2 schools they start with heredity. That you inform. So as of now, which school? Same. So now, in case as your school starts with the bio portion and they start with heredity or any other chapter, then inform. Maybe half of the chapter for life process we do, and then we can shift to heredity. So that way we can do, because the first exam you will have schools which are starting with life process. You will have 2 sections or only 1 section of that chapter. As just now I mentioned, this chapter is an elaborate one with 4 sections there. So either 1 section or 2 sections. But here also you have to appear for the tests. The first test that we will conduct, generally we will keep the first 2 sections of that chapter. So we would start with the first chapter, that is life processes. Life processes, that's the first chapter that we start with. Processes, from the term you understand, we are talking about processes means what? It is a sequence of events. It is a sequence of events, as we understand. Any process, if you talk about it, is always a systematic sequence of events. Now, what are life processes? I talk about complex organisms. I talk about plants. I talk about animals. What do you understand by the word life process? Life process always means what? Processes necessary for the survival of an organism. Then which are those processes without which an organism cannot survive? Respiration, excretion, then the distribution of the food, the distribution of the nutrients, food, and so many other different type of chemical substances. So I would say transportation is another one. Release of waste substances, otherwise the body fluid becomes toxic. So release of waste substances is also very much necessary. So now I just now mentioned 4 major processes which are necessary for survival. And which are the 4 major processes I mentioned? One, I said nutrition. Second, I mentioned respiration. Third, I mentioned transportation. And fourth, I mentioned release of waste substances, that is excretion. Release of waste substances, that is excretion. So now, these 4 major processes in all complex organisms necessary for survival. So now, when I talk about that these 4 processes are necessary for survival, which are some of the processes also we come across in organisms is maybe reproduction, a major process that we understand, where organisms would multiply in large numbers, continuity of life. Should I write here in this list, is reproduction a must for the survival of organisms? No. So always remember, reproduction is not a life process. Is reproduction a life process or reproduction is not a life process? Justify. What will you write? Reproduction is definitely necessary for the continuity of the race, increase in the number of individuals of a population. But if an organism is not capable of reproducing, if an organism does not reproduce, is that disturbing the survival of that organism anyhow? Not at all. So not a life process. Nutrition, respiration, transportation, excretion, these are the 4 main parts of the chapter. But I will add something more here, and this is diffusion. I add one more life process known as diffusion. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of this word, diffusion? You have studied no diffusion somewhere or the other. What is diffusion? What is diffusion?
Exchange of gases.
What is diffusion?
It is a process through which water comes in and out of body or cells.
No. No idea what is diffusion?
Moving of a substance from high concentration to low.
Very good. You apply some body spray. What's happening? You are applying the body spray right here. But your mother sitting away in the room, does she get the smell?
Yes.
Diffusion. Your mother is cooking food in the kitchen, sitting in the hall. Are you able to smell? Diffusion. What is happening? What is diffusion? Or I take a cup of tea and I put a sugar cube. In 2 minutes time, when I stir and I drink, it is sweet. Diffusion. So what is diffusion? Diffusion means process in which molecules of gases, solids, liquids, all molecules of gases, solids, liquids, they can always move from a region of high concentration to low concentration. But why am I talking about diffusion? I will talk about this first because this all 4 are elaborate topics. This is a small concept that you have to study in your portion. Now, when I'm talking about diffusion, just now I told you the definition. What is the definition of diffusion? The movement of molecules of a substance. What is the definition? The definition is the movement of molecules of a substance. When I say molecules of a substance, the word substance includes the solids, liquid, and the gases, all 3. Movement of molecules of a substance from a region of high concentration, to a region of low concentration. So now, when we are talking about the concept of diffusion, we are also, definitely this is the definition, but why are we talking about diffusion right now? Because this is a process which enables survival in single-celled organisms. I may talk about a single-celled organism like the amoeba. Now this amoeba, how does it take in food? Liquid molecules, say suppose. How does it take in food? Through the body wall, diffusion. So whenever I'm talking about the concept of diffusion, remember, by the process of diffusion, molecules are moving from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration. The waste substances, if I talk about the waste substances are moving out from the body outside. Molecules are moving from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration area. But by this method, the organism is carrying out nutrition, exchange of gases, throwing out of waste substances. So I gave you certain few examples like the body spray and cooking of the food, and there are ample of examples to talk about in our daily life if I had to talk about diffusion. But can diffusion be a life supporting process? Yes, if it is a single celled organism. In a single celled organism, the process of nutrition, exchange of gases, intake of the water, etc., so many release of the waste substances, so many processes carried out by diffusion.
Remember, as explained in the school, they told that in amoeba,
Phagocytosis.
Yeah.
Phagocytosis is also a process where chunks of the food and etc., small molecules can also be entering through the body wall, where it makes a pocket-like structure and entering. So then also, when it is entering, so what's happening? The molecules are passing. So the molecules are passing through the membrane. No? Molecules will pass through the. Never mind. I have shown you in very simple. The same thing I can show you this way also. The same thing I can show you this way also, where a food vacuole is formed. And then the molecules are here. But after the process of digestion, the molecules will move into the cytoplasm. How will it get distributed? It is diffusion only. Distribution only ultimately. So when I talk about the concept of diffusion, yes, either by the way of food vacuole or by the way of contractile vacuole, the concept of diffusion always lies here. I will very well talk about the concept of phagocytosis, which also involves the formation of pocket-like structures like this, release of waste substances also involving a pocket-like substance structure, but ultimately it is diffusion, releasing out of the waste substances. But now the question is that if in a single-celled organism diffusion can help in the release of the waste substances, exchange of the gases, why not in a complex organism? Can I say right now that diffusion can be a life process for bringing about nutrition, exchange of gases in a complex organism like human, or a fish, or a bird, or a well-developed plant? No. Can you tell me why?
Because they are multicellular.
Multicellular. And?
They have many types of cells.
Multicellular. And if I talk about a complex organism, say suppose for a fish or a frog or a plant or ourselves, every cell of the body is not in contact with the external environment. So if I talk about a complex organism where there are millions of cells, now let us talk about ourselves. Yes, this layer of cells in direct contact with the external environment. The oxygen can enter, but can this oxygen enter, and from these skin cells, how does it go to the cells of the bone? How does it go to the cells of the stomach? No particular method. So if it is a single-celled organism, that is possible. If it is a single-celled organism, yes, oxygen can straight away get it through the body wall. Carbon dioxide can straight away move out through the body wall, possible. But if I talk about complex organisms like any type of a vertebrate or smaller invertebrates also, the deeper cells of the body, since they are not in contact with the external environment, even if the oxygen enters also, the oxygen will be present only in some few layers of cells. They will definitely not enter into the blood or the bone cells or the muscle cells, etc., etc. So here, when I say that this process known as diffusion, does it satisfy? And in complex organism, no. And what is the answer that always you should write? Because in complex organisms, all cells of the body are not in contact with the external environment. Diffusion can satisfy only few layers of cells and can never enter into the deeper parts of the body. Unless and until oxygen enters into the deeper parts of the body, how? The breakdown of the food and the release of energy, nothing can happen. No, nothing can happen. So here, since I'm talking about diffusion, here a question arises. Is diffusion a satisfactory process? Is diffusion a satisfactory process for multicellular organisms? So if I talk about, is diffusion a beneficial process or a satisfactory process for multicellular organisms? No, it is not. And just now I gave you the answer that why it is not. Justify with reason or an example. Is diffusion a satisfactory process? Does diffusion help in the process of exchange of gases, etc., in a human or in any vertebrate? The answer remains standard. The answer is the same. Okay? So this is the first part. You have got a small paragraph on this, diffusion in single cell organisms, in the first part of the chapter itself. We will start with this question. Take out your notebooks, write on the name of the chapter. We will start with this concept. First of all, we will write on the definition of diffusion. And then we'll start with this question. This is also a text question, just framed in a brilliant way. Separate notebook. Yes. So, एक में कैसे लिखोगे? How will you understand how many pages for physics to give, how many for chemistry to give? And it will be a complete encyclopedia later. How everything else makes no. Keep separate notebooks. If you want to do good, if you want to prepare better than your, as compared to your school portion, if you want to go ahead, then you have to be very serious. Then only you get the benefit. Otherwise, you just come, go, you will not be able to see any benefit. I'm telling you right from the beginning. The question answers and everything that we do, you'll have to keep written properly. Most of the question answers that I do will be from the volume, from the text, almost all the questions solved. So when you prepare for the exam, you have to refer to all these question answers. And then you get an idea that, okay, this is the concept, this is another type of a question I can answer. When your notes and your classwork is not proper, what happens during the exam? You are searching, no? This page, that page. So you are not keeping a track at all what has been done in the class. So that is no benefit for you at all. So please give separate notebooks. Separate notebooks, physics, chemistry, biology, separate notebooks to take. Write on the definition, write on the name of the chapter first. Okay. Now, life process, right? The name of the chapter. Then the first part, definition of diffusion, you write. All of you will write on the definition of diffusion and then we'll try answering this question. Show me the next one. Done? See there, if you look into your textbook, page 81, there's one question there. Why is diffusion insufficient to meet the oxygen requirement of multicellular organisms like human? It is the same type of question like this. Same question may be framed in different way. The answer remains exactly the same. Let us try answering that question. You may write the question in the text also, or this question that I gave you, the same answer. If you are writing this question, you may just mark as within bracket or oblique, same as question number 1, page 81. Same as question number 1, page 81. Write down the answer. No. Only this question I asked you to mark. Did you mark this? No, definition you write from there. You wrote? Now next question you write. You can write down this question also. Tick this question. That's done. Question number 1. Tick that question. Why is diffusion insufficient to meet the oxygen requirement? Let us write the answer. Diffusion is insufficient. Diffusion is insufficient to meet the oxygen requirement. Insufficient to meet the oxygen requirement in a multicellular organism. The oxygen requirement in a multicellular organism because the deeper layers of cells which are not in contact with the external environment will not receive oxygen, and release energy. Full stop. Last one more line. In these organisms, oxygen will maximally be supplied, maximally. In this organisms, oxygen will maximally be supplied to few cells, which are on the outer surface of the body. So this is, we try understanding that this particular concept of diffusion, what is it? And now that we are trying to understand life process, can we consider this as life process? And if at all we consider also as a life process, is it for all the type of organisms or there are specifications? And definitely diffusion can be considered as a life process only for a small fraction of organisms.
You have to draw the diagram.
No. This is just for your understanding. So this is all about diffusion. Nothing much is there about this particular process. Now we start with the first part of the chapter, that is nutrition. Now, if I talk about the concept of nutrition, and say suppose I would use this word nutrients. Can anybody tell me what is the difference between these two words? Are you clear? What is the difference between these two words, nutrition and nutrients? What are these?
Nutrients are the complex material, but when we consume them and our body turns them into simpler substance, then they are called as nutrition.
The process by which the body turns into simpler substance, that is called nutrition. Okay, roughly. So when I talk about nutrition, what is it? Always remember, it is a process. Nutrition is always a process. Process of what? Process by which an organism takes in food, process by which an organism breaks down that complex food into simpler form and utilizes that food inside the body. Meaning, I talk about when you consume a particular type of a food. For example, you are consuming a bowl of vegetables. How would you take it? There's a method, no? If I'm talking about human, there's a particular method how we take in that food. Is this method of taking in of the food the same as the parrot? Same as the fish? Same as the hydra? No. Different group of organisms, different methods by which the organism takes in food. Number one. Number two, now that the food is inside, there are different organs and tissues in our body to digest the food, break it down to simpler forms. Is this method the same in the body of a fish, and is this method the same in the body of a earthworm, etc., etc.? Again, no. The methods are different. Now that the food is broken down to simpler forms, what is the ultimate? The ultimate is the food should be broken down to simpler forms, and that should enter the tissues, cells. Why? To release energy. To release energy, correct? So if I'm talking about that you are eating any type of a food, a bowl of vegetables I mentioned, some nuts I mentioned, you talk about a piece of apple or a slice of bread or a roti or etc., etc., anything that should ultimately be broken down into simpler forms, and those components should reach the body cells, that is utilization. Breaking it down to simpler forms, digestion. And method by which you take in is ingestion, also known as procurement. So this entire three steps that I mentioned just now, club them up together, that is nutrition. So nutrition is what? It is a process by which organisms can take in food, digest it into simpler forms, and is utilized by the body cells. Yes, then the story is over. Nutrition. Then what are nutrients? What are nutrients? Did you hear about the concept of, I'm sure all of you must be aware about this. If I talk about what are nutrients, carbohydrates you know, proteins you know, fats you know, minerals, vitamin, all these words you are very much acquainted with. So what are these? These are the chemical components of the food. Chemical components of the food are known as nutrients. Carbohydrates, you are aware, no? Carbohydrates. Give me a food rich in carbohydrate.
Rice.
Rice. What else? Bread. Potato. Food rich in fats.
Butter. Fish.
Fats. Not rich. Fish is not rich in fats. Fish oil separate. But fish, if we have to say, rich in protein. Butter. Rich in fats. Curd isn't bola rich in fat. Butter, cheese, rich in fats. Protein, egg, meat, and now fish. Okay. So you are aware that nutrients means what and where, what type of food item, food stuff. What is nutrition and nutrients? What is the difference? Difference between nutrition and nutrients is, nutrition is a process, nutrients are the chemical components. Right? A difference between nutrition and nutrients. Differentiate between nutrition and nutrients. This itself should be sufficient enough to write definitions, examples, right? Differentiate between nutrition and nutrients. Nutrition and nutrients. Presentation 10 standard, you always have to take it, make a table, difference, and then to write. You will not write in a paragraph. 10 standard students should be very specific about your presentation right from the beginning. Make a table and then write. Nutrition and nutrients. Let us write. Write for nutrition. The process of taking in or process of taking in or procurement. Process of taking in or procurement. Procurement means taking in. Process of taking in or procurement of food. Its digestion. Process of taking in or procurement of food, comma, its digestion or breakdown into simpler forms, its digestion or breakdown into simpler forms and utilization by body cells and utilization by body cells is known as nutrition. Utilization by body cells is known as nutrition. Is known as nutrition. Nutrients, other side. Nutrients, the chemical components present in food. The chemical components present in food. Chemical components present in food items. Chemical components present in food items are known as nutrients. Are known as nutrients. So which are the nutrients that you did not write in your answer now? So now that I talk about the difference, this is the difference. Nutrition is a process. Nutrients are chemical components. Then to understand now, next is then which are the different types of nutrients. The different type of nutrients are carbohydrates, proteins. Next is carbohydrates, proteins, fats. Next is what? Mineral. What next? Vitamin. Is there anything else apart from this? Is there anything else apart from this one?
And we didn't know.
You did not know, meaning what? Half an hour late. With school? School gets over what time? 12:30. Look at them, they are turning up now. You don't see the timetable or schedule? Now, when we are talking about nutrients, which are the nutrients? Carbohydrates, proteins, fats, mineral, vitamin. Is there anything else? Nothing? You have studied in earlier standards, no? What is the other type of nutrients also we can talk about? Water is also there, roughage is also there. That is also considered now as nutrients, roughage. But yes, primarily these 5. What are the major 5 types of nutrients? Carbohydrates, proteins, fats, minerals. Now what is common in all of them is, all of them are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and when I talk about proteins, proteins may also have sulfur and phosphorus. This you'll have to remember. Nutrients, when I talk about, what are nutrients? Chemical components present in the different types of food. What is the chemical component present in corn? What is the chemical component present in the cauliflower? What is the chemical component present in the cabbage? What is the chemical component present in the beans and the pulses and in milk and in bread? And so like this, when I talk about what are the different type of chemical components present, either carbohydrate rich, a food item can be either carbohydrate rich or protein rich or fat or mineral or vitamin. Carbohydrate, just now I asked you a few examples. So what can be some major type of food item rich in carbohydrate? Carbohydrate rich in rice, any type of wheat, if I talk about any type of flour, wheat I talk about, corn I talk about, rich in carbohydrate. The bread and the bun, etc. that we eat, rich in carbohydrate. What now for proteins? Just now we mentioned few examples. What else? Proteins rich in all the different type of pulses that we eat. Dal, the variety of dals that we eat, all are rich in proteins. What else? The different type of beans, the broad beans, etc., the rajma, the choli, etc., all rich in proteins. What else? Milk, a source of protein, though it has got other different type of nutrients also, but still it is a source of protein. Fish, egg, meat, source of protein. Fats, major sources are vegetable oil, then the fish oil, the ghee and the butter and the cheese, all of these. Then mineral and vitamin, where do we get? Fruits, variety of fruits. The different type of vegetables that we are advised to eat. The green leafy vegetables, all the different type of vegetables that we understand, they somewhere or the other, every type of vegetable has got this particular vitamin, that particular vitamin. A single vegetable, can I say that this particular vegetable has got only one vitamin? No. Every particular vegetable has got 7, 8 different types of minerals, 7, 8 different types of vitamin. So mineral, vitamin, that's why I always club together. So mineral and vitamin, I cannot explain you just now saying that mineral means only cabbage and vitamin means only apple. No. Mineral and vitamin, every type of a fruit, every type of a crop or a vegetable will have a number of minerals and a number of vitamins. So what did I say? What are these nutrients actually made up of? What are the elements that they are made up of? There's a small paragraph you'll have to underline. I'll ask you to underline later. They are made up of what? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. And if proteins, they may have sulfur and phosphorus also. This is only for proteins. Sulfur and phosphorus, if I talk about, this is only for proteins in addition to carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Am I clear? So now, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, that is standard for any type of nutrient. Proteins किससे बनता है? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Carbohydrate किससे बनता है? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen in different type of combinations. Structural formula अलग है, etc. to explain that. So, what are carbohydrates made up of? What is your answer? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. What are the elements? Protein, yahi. Fats, yahi. But then, how is it possible? Wahi carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, har cheez mein? Yes. The combinations only are different, the bonds are different, the arrangements are different. So, that is what we are always to remember. So, nutrients, that's the reason we say, what are nutrients? The chemical components present in food. What are nutrients? The chemical components present in food. The different type of chemical components. अब इनके functions भी अलग है. If I talk about carbohydrate, are you aware what is the function of carbohydrates? Whenever you eat rice or roti or some bread bun, are you aware what type of process happens in the body? Immediately energy is released. So I would say carbohydrate food provides us with energy. The same is when I talk about fats, butter, cheese, etc. When we eat, they get burnt, broken down in our body. They also provide energy. Fats, ghee, butter, etc. provides us with energy. That's the reason when it is too cold, we are advised to take food rich in ghee a little bit. Why? Because it instantly produces energy, heat in our body. Proteins, are you aware? What does proteins do in our body? Proteins का क्या function है? Proteins build up our muscles. Proteins help making our muscles in our body, make tissues in our body. Proteins, fats help in making the cells, and already I mentioned releases energy. And what does this mineral and vitamin do then in our body? Mineral and vitamins are always known as protective foods, meaning they always give us immunity, protect us from various different type of diseases, help in making the body cells, etc. So इनके जो functions है, एक basic function also you should be remembering. Carbohydrates and fats, majorly energy giving type of foods. Proteins, tissue building foods. They make tissues in our body form, help us repair. Say suppose you have gone through a fall, you suffered from a cut. So the new skin that develops and the group of cells that develop is only because of the protein. If adequate protein is not there, then the healing and the repair will take a long time. Mineral, vitamin, protective foods. What is the meaning? Keeps us away from different type of diseases. Clear? So what did I talk about nutrients just now? I said nutrients are chemical components present in different type of foods और हर एक type of nutrient का एक अलग function है. Every type of nutrient has got one or the other type of function. But commonly, what are the type of elements that they are made up of? They are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Something more to talk about nutrients and nutrition. Something more to talk about nutrients and nutrition. If you look at the textbook, page number 80. Look into the textbook, page number 80. Just take these two paragraphs. Take these two paragraphs, that is take these two paragraphs, the second paragraph. The second paragraph, the third paragraph you take. Second, third, fourth. These paragraphs you will definitely go home and read properly today. So the same thing I'm explaining here in points. So now when I talk about, again, something more to understand, nutrition and nutrients. Here I would add, apart from nutrients, what else is the food stuff? Yes, food stuff is something like that we were talking about just now, no? The cabbage and the cauliflower and the bun and the bread and the pulses and the nuts. Ye ho gaya food stuffs. Based on the eating method, does the food stuff vary? Eating method पे food stuff vary करता है कि नहीं करता है? Or is it that any terrestrial animal, land animals, all can eat the same type of food? Is it like that? Aquatic example, aquatic organism है तो सबका एक तरह का food they can take it. Is it like that? No. So why does the aquatic organism, all of them, does not eat the same type of food? No. So how is it different? Why is it different? Based on what type of mouth parts they have. I talk about the mouth parts of the birds and the humans. Same hai. Mouth parts of the human, we have got defined teeth. So we can cut, grind. No, we can grind also, cut also. So इसीलिए the type of food that we eat are varied. बहुत तरह के food हम खा सकते हैं. But is that the same for the birds? Birds have got the beak, they don't have teeth. So उनका food is very different from what we eat, no? But they are also terrestrial, हम भी terrestrial हैं. But not necessarily, we are terrestrial, but food habit very much depends on the mouth parts that we have, the process of digestion inside our body that we have. Clear? So, does the method of nutrition depend on the body parts of an organism, mouth parts of an organism? Yes, very much. The habitat also to some extent, yes. If I talk about a fish in the water, definitely the fish in the water will never feed on seeds. Fish in the water will always feed on small other fishes or other organisms. And a small bird will never be able to feed on small fishes, no? That will always feed on leaves or seeds or fruits, etc. So yes, the process of nutrition very much depend on what is the habitat, where we are, land, water, and what is our mouth parts. ये दो factor पे process of nutrition, food habit depend करता है. So after you are a little bit aware about what is nutrition, what are nutrients, next we have to study the modes of nutrition. What are the modes now? Let us go to the modes. Modes matlab methods. What are the methods of nutrition? This also you have very much come across in your earlier standards. This also you have very much come across in your earlier standards. I am talking about the two major modes of nutrition. Which are the two major modes of nutrition? The two major modes of nutrition. One is autotrophic mode. You know, no? What is autotrophic? Yes? Yes. What is autotrophic? तो autotrophic का contrast क्या है? Heterotrophic. So what is the other opposite? Contrast है heterotrophic. What are the two different modes of nutrition? The two different modes of nutrition are autotrophic and heterotrophic. Autotrophic का definition क्या है? What is the definition of autotrophic? They make their own food. Correct. What type of examples we are talking about? What is the meaning of an autotrophic organism? What are autotrophic or what is autotrophic mode of nutrition? Organisms which can make their own food. This process is known as autotrophic. कौन सी examples हैं? Plants. और कुछ है? हाँ, और कुछ है?
We can make our own food.
We can only cook our food. We cannot make own food. Now, when we are talking about making own food means our body should be able to make certain components ताकि हमें अलग से खाना नहीं पड़े. हमको अलग से खाना पड़ता है. We have to eat. We have to eat variety of food. We have to eat carbohydrates also, proteins also, fats also, etc., etc., etc. The plants need not go for all this trouble. Why? The plant has certain methods by which they can prepare chemical components necessary for survival. Can we? No, we cannot. So what is the definition of autotrophic? Organisms that can make their own food. The method by which organisms can make their own food, autotrophic. Examples, plants तो definitely है. Apart from plants, what else? Some bacteria. Apart from plants, some bacteria where in the soil. Algae भी है in the sea, ocean, that is also there, and some bacteria in the soil. They are also autotrophic. They are also autotrophic. So what is the definition autotrophic? Remember, I am talking about autotrophic जो एक process है. I am talking about nutrition and their types, modes, process. So how should you write the definition? Define autotrophic nutrition. The mode of nutrition, the process of nutrition. क्योंकि ये एक process है, no? Nutrition repeatedly I am telling you it is a process. तो definition कैसे लिखते हैं? Otherwise वो 1 mark से half mark जाएगा. So I am talking about autotrophic nutrition. कैसे लिखेंगे? Autotrophic nutrition, the mode of nutrition. ये mode या process लिखना जरूरी है. The mode of nutrition in which organisms can make their own food. The mode of nutrition in which organisms can make their own food, make या तो synthesize their own food. Now, synthesize their own food. Then what are these organisms known as? For example, I may talk about plants. Okay. I may talk about algae. Fine. I may talk about bacteria. These are all capable of autotrophic nutrition. तो इनको एक word में अगर मुझे summarize करना है, then what should I say? All these organisms are autotrophs. आया समझ में? Autotrophs है दो organisms जो autotrophic mode carry out करता है. That is the meaning. Autotrophic is a process. Autotroph is an organism. Understood? So what is the autotrophic nutrition? What is the meaning? Autotrophic nutrition means the mode, the method in which organisms can prepare their own food. That is autotrophic method. That is the autotrophic mode. And any such organism which is capable of doing so, that is autotroph. तो ये जो सारे organisms है, इसमें कुछ तो special property होती होगी जिसके वजह से they are capable of making their own food. So what is that special property? What is that specific distinctive property that they have? जिसकी वजह से they are capable of making their own food. But if I have to define the other side, what should I write? Mode in which organisms are not capable of making their own food. So these organisms, we also belong to this category. And that's the reason we have to depend on plants and other animals for food. We have to depend on plants and other animals for food. So this is the first difference. So what is the first difference to write between autotrophic and heterotrophic? Heterotrophic, the mode in which organisms depend on plants and other animals, for food is known as heterotrophic mode. तो अगर examples लिखना है same like this, 10 to 4 examples heterotrophic, very simple. क्या लिखेंगे? Okay, I talk about bird, I talk about human, और क्या? Animals तो काफी सारे हैं. You have to write examples. Fishes, all these are heterotrophic. Up now, so इनको क्या बोलेंगे? What would be that one word? Heterotrophs. What is the difference? Differentiate between heterotrophs and autotrophs. Differentiate heterotrophs and autotrophs. What is your answer?
Autotrophs are the
organisms. Your answer should start this way. Heterotrophs are organisms which cannot make their own food and depend on plants and animals. Autotrophs are organisms which can make their own food. Differentiate autotrophic and heterotrophic mode. What is your answer?
The mode of nutrients.
The mode in which organisms prepare. So ये याद रखना है. अगर ऐसे question आया तो मुझे mode या process का word use करना ही है answer में. अगर ये है, then I am mentioning them as organisms. Write down this. Differentiate between autotrophic. कौन सा? That is lecture notes. If you want to write, you write. But what definitely you should write, that only I will tell you. Differentiate between autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Differentiate. अगर नहीं समझ में आता है, you should raise question. See that you understand. What you listen here, you should learn here itself. It is very easy. All the chapters. Then CBSE is very easy. But what you all do is you don't study till October. November में जाके तुम लोग जाग जाते हो, and that's the reason difficult to manage. Right from now, if you study, it's so simple. 10 CBSE chapters are so simple. So now the first, what I told you, differentiate between autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition. So nutrition अगर बोला गया है एग्जाम में, क्वेश्चन पेपर में, then how should I write my answer? The mode. लिखो. You'll be able to write on your own, right? The mode in which organisms are capable of making their own food, etc., etc. मोड का एग्जांपल तो मैंने डिस्कस नहीं किया. ऑटोट्रॉफ्स का एग्जांपल यू कैन राइट. I asked you now the question, differentiate between autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition. तो उसमें कोई एग्जांपल नहीं है.
But these are the examples of autotrophic and heterotrophic evolution.
Both नहीं है ना, these are examples of autotrophs and heterotrophs. Plants and algae and etc. These are not examples of autotrophic mode. ये example है autotrophs का. In
These are the organisms which make this type of
process.
variation.
हाँ, go through this process. Yeah. Okay, चलो I'll give you one more question so it remains written in your notebook. बाद में कोई confusion नहीं है when you read. Next question you write. Write 2 examples each for autotrophs and heterotrophs. Write 2 examples each for autotrophs and heterotrophs. Write 2 examples each for autotrophs and heterotrophs. You can write your own example for autotrophs, this much only, there's nothing else. Heterotrophs, any example you can write.
Can you repeat the question?
Write 2 examples each for autotrophs and heterotrophs. Write 2 examples each for autotrophs and heterotrophs. Clear है? Is this clear? 2 examples, any 2 examples you write. Autotrophs के सारे लिख के रखो. Autotrophs you write all. If 2 asked, then any 2 out of the 3 you write. Heterotrophs, any example you write your choice. Heterotrophs के बहुत examples हैं, so you can write any example your choice. But autotrophs, all these 3 types you should know. Plants है, algae है, and bacteria.
Now, what is the scientific name for blue-green algae?
Cyanobacteria. Mycoplasmas also, but mycoplasmas are very active. Okay? Take a break, 5 minutes, and after the break again we will continue. Don't erase anything. Again after the break we will continue.
Or whether